Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. In this video, I am going to talk about Azure AD administration. As we discussed in the last session, Azure AD is one of the identity and access management service offered by Microsoft Azure platform. If you are setting up an organization in the cloud or integrating the applications into the cloud environment, and you want your users to access the applications from anywhere in the and in the world, then Azure AD can be the best solution to manage the identity for your organization. So Azure AD is built in for many Azure Microsoft Cloud services. Like if you purchase any Office 365 subscription, let's say you are purchasing your Office 365 subscription or M365 subscription, by default, it will have the Azure AD inbuilt in. So you don't need to specifically enroll or sign up for Azure Active Directory with any other methods. So, but only thing is that if it is Office 365, you may not have visibility to the Azure AD console and to create and manage the users because Office 365 itself have a visibility or no have an option to create users and create groups and assign licenses. So manage the environment from Office 365 portal itself. If you purchase the Azure subscription for the first time, so you will anyways will have the Azure AD built-in created in the backend. But here with the Azure subscription, so you have a portal.azure.com URL. So when you log into this URL, you will be able to access the Azure Active Directory. So when you for the first time when you subscribe for the Azure AD, you don't get a tenant directly with your own domain name. Let's say your company is VVH IT Solutions, so you will get a domain or a directory or tenant with the name as vvhitsolutions.onmicrosoft.com. So this is the directory you are going to use it. It is not like same as what you have in your on-premise environment like vvhitsolutions.com or counterso.com. So it's going to be with the suffix as onmicrosoft.com. So you can create user accounts with the this long UPN suffix. Let's say user one at vvhitsolutions dot on microsoft.com, and give them access to the required applications. Let's say this user need to have access to the Azure subscription, you can grant them access to Azure subscription. If this user need access to Office 365 like products, then you can give them access to Office 365 as well. So but in the enterprise environment, we always want to have usernames or user UPNs with their company name. Let's say user one at vvhitsolutions.com. You want to have a domain username with this domain. So this can be achievable with the Azure AD features, which we say custom domain. So Microsoft giving you an option to use your own domain to provision your users and identities in the Azure environment. So you can use custom domain verification feature to map your own domain with the onmicrosoft.com domain, so that your users can be provisioned or your identities can be provisioned with your own domain name. So how it happens is, let's say you brought your domain from one of the domain provider, maybe GoDaddy as an example. So what you need to do is you need to log into GoDaddy account and create a few records like TXT records and MX records. They are the DNS records. Once you create these records in the GoDaddy account, then you can verify the domain. So when you verified that on Microsoft.com domain can be pointed to the vvhitsolutions.com domain, your own domain name. So this is how it's gonna work. First, we have to set up the Azure AD, and then you can enroll this feature by going to your domain provider and verify it. Okay, so so this is how you ensure that you use your own domain to provision user accounts. So the way we create user accounts is pretty straightforward. You can just go to Azure portal and look for Azure Active Directory, and you have a user section. So under the user section, you can start provisioning the users. So you can click on new user. There is a new user option, invite external user option. When you say create new user option, so you are going to create a user account in the cloud environment, which means this is going to be your cloud user. And here you have an option whether you want to choose the your own domain name, or you want to use Microsoft given domain name, or you want to, if you have multiple directories access, you can choose the multiple directories as well. The other option what you have is invite external users. So this is where you are going to engage your on different organization users. The reason we go for this option is, let's say you have a project and you need some skills from a different organization where they come and implement certain solutions in your organization. So in such scenarios, project is for a certain duration of time period, let's say 1 month, or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. In that, during this time, you don't want to set up the user accounts in your domain because you have a lot of policies and procedure that you have to follow. So instead of that, instead of setting up the new account in your own domain, what you can do is you can invite their accounts, their organization email ID or user ID password. They can use it to access your directory and your resources. So in this case, let's say the users, the external users, maybe other company users, are responsible for providing the or managing the infrastructure or setting up infrastructure in a cloud environment for certain duration of time, or probably they have to engage into your directory to integrate couple of SaaS applications into your organization directory. So those are a couple of use cases where you need to engage third party or other organization users. So for that reason, what we do is we invite their business email IDs here, and they get an invitation. Then you can also decide, what kind of permissions you want to provide for these users. Do you want to provide the global administrator access, or you want to give them a user administrator access within Azure AD? It's all depends on what they are going to do. Let us say they need to integrate some of the applications with your Azure AD. So then they might have to be like application administrators. If they are responsible for adding a couple of users into your directories and manage them for certain duration of time, then maybe you might be giving them the user administrator role. So maybe they don't touch anything on Azure AD. Their core responsibility is going to be managing the Azure subscription and its resources. Then they can be just a user on Azure AD, and you can customize the permissions on the Azure subscription level. It's all business requirement. Based on the business requirement, you are going to decide what role you want to provide for your business to business users. So in this case, both the cases, I have not started creating the user accounts at the moment. We'll create them in a moment. But there is one more user type which we say on-premises synced and sync enabled. So right now you see these are the users which are got created in the cloud environment. They are not on-premises sync enabled users, which means they are not created in the on-premises. So if you remember yesterday's session or last session, so we discussed about the on-premises Active Directory and how the users are getting provisioned. This is what we have been following in our enterprise environments. A new joiner join your organization. Your IT team provides user ID password. Then they get access to the internal systems like your servers or applications. That's how they are doing it. They connect remotely to those applications through VPN, or to the servers through VPN. Maybe they go to corporate network and try to connect to their applications. Now, since we are moving to the cloud, how these users can connect to the cloud enabled applications could be subscription access to Azure, Office 365 license access, maybe some of the applications integrate with your Azure AD, how they can access with their on-premises user ID password. Are we going to provision the new user accounts in the cloud for them to access? Is it really a better solution? No, right? Because they have to remember the on-premises credential as well as the Azure AD credentials. So that is the reason what we generally do is, we synchronize their on-premises AD users to Azure AD using a Azure AD Connect tool. So using this tool, we are going to synchronize to Azure AD so that they can use their on-premises user ID password to log into the cloud-based applications such as Microsoft Azure portal, or could be Office 365 based applications, or SaaS-based applications that are provisioned in Azure AD. So they can be logged into any Microsoft online products that they have been granted access to it. So that's another category of user which we will be looking into it. Before we before we start creating the users, let us look at the properties. As you see, the basic information is here is like my directory name, which is VBH IT Solutions, and this is my tenant ID, and this is my primary domain, which I made it. But otherwise, the default domain is going to be like on Microsoft.com domain, since I did a custom domain verification with my domain provider. So that's why you're able to see vbhitsolutions.com. And I have a Azure AD Premium P2 license purchased. It's a trial version which I enrolled. You can also do it, and when you are enrolling, so it's better to go for Enterprise Mobility Suite plus E5 plus security. So that will give you automatically Azure AD Premium P2 license, as well as you will get the EMS license as well. So where you can do some Intune related policies you can apply, and you can test various things in the Intune as well. So that you can get around 250 licenses, and which is valid for 90 days. So that's about the licenses that I acquired. And there are a couple of users already created, couple of groups already there, and couple of applications. There are few users who registered their device to their cloud environment. So which means they can log into their laptop using the Azure AD credentials, so that once they log in, they get access to all the applications, access seamlessly, so that they don't need to enter the credentials multiple times to log into any applications that are integrated with the Azure Active Directory. As you have been keep on hearing me that SaaS applications, integrating SaaS applications, or adding the SaaS applications to the Azure AD. So what I mean is, this is the feature. If you see under the manage, you have users, groups, external identities, roles that are on Azure AD, administrative units, delegated admin partners, enterprise application. This is what the SaaS application that I'm referring. There is one thing called app registration. So there is a slight difference between the enterprise applications and app registrations. So if I go to enterprise applications, there are many gallery applications that you can see, and you can just import them into your Azure Active Directory and start giving access to the users. So one of the test application was created here by one of our user. If you want to browse more applications, just come here and click on browse Azure AD Gallery. As you can see here, there are multiple filters what you have here when you want to integrate the SaaS-based applications into your on-premise Azure Active Directory. So you can always go, and check based on the single sign-on option. Do you want to, integrate an application which supports the SAML-based authentication, or OpenID Connect, or password-based, or linked? So these are the authentication methods, or sign-in methods what you see in Azure AD. So you can filter the application, based on the sign-on method, or you can also, filter the application based on the user provisioning. So right now, there's only automated provisioning option available, but you can also add users manually. If you go to this, and this is where you can filter your applications, right? So they have given a beautiful option here based on the business category, category of the application. You can choose it, and you can import them. Let's say if I want to import something into CRM based, click on apply. So these are the CRM based applications of different vendors, different companies that are providing these solutions. So if your business is enrolling for any one of them, you can just integrate them with the Azure Active Directory. Example, I'll just take one of them as an sample here. So this one of the application I want to integrate into my Azure Active Directory. Just click on create. So once you import it, Once you create is nothing but you are importing this application into adding this application to Azure Active Directory. And once you add it, then you can decide how you want your user to sign on. So you can see here it is SAML based sign on and linked to sign on. These are the two sign on methods it is supporting. And this is the URL for it. And it supports the automatic user provisioning. It looks like it is not supporting the automatic provisioning. You have to add the users manually. So there are two things how you configure the sign on for this application. So you need to have the account in Pandoc, Pandadoc, and once you have the account in Pandadoc, and there will the application supports the single sign on. You can just check the Microsoft documentation here. Let's say with the Azure AD, if you search, definitely you will get some information. You can see here, this is how you add the application. Once you add the application, you can configure the single sign-on. So you have to follow these steps. So what you need to do is you need to go to the application and click on the SAML page and modify these values. And these values can also be provisioned from the this documentation. You can go to the Panda doc SSO page and configure it accordingly. So you need to have an account in the PandaDoc, then you will be able to configure this. So now I see the application is added here, and you have an option to add users and groups to this application who can manage this application very well. And if you want to configure single sign-on, you can also configure it SAML based or linked. As we see in the application documentation, it supports SAML based and linked as well. And provisioning, I think automatic provisioning was not supporting. That's what we have seen in the documentation. So what you when you say roles and users and groups, so whatever the users you are adding, so or groups you are adding, they can access this application. So you can configure accordingly. You can also add owners so that the one can add the users to the group, and they can remove it whenever is required. So this how we add, and as Azure AD administrator, you might be getting a request to add an application to Azure AD, and there will be options given for you to configure the single sign-on. So these properties will be configured because not every application you are not an administrator, right? So you might be admin in the Azure AD, but when it comes to the actual application web page, you may not be having full access because some of this identity information has to be updated in the application admin console. So there you may not have access, but here you can update the required information and give the information to the application owner. So they will be able to log in and they will be able to update the remaining configuration what you see here. Okay, so this is how we integrate applications, and once the application is integrated, you can give access to the users and groups, whether the user is a cloud-based user or a business-to-business collaborating user, or it can be on-premises synchronous user. Either you want to add them directly as a user here, or you just create a group for this application specific, and add all the users to that group and come here and give them access to the groups. Okay, so you can search here. Let's say if I say May 2023, there's one group, this has a couple of users. Okay, and click on assign. And I can also assign to specific users as well. Like I just need to search here like this and give them access. Okay, when these users logged into their My Apps portal, they will be able to see this application that they are granted access to it. Okay, so this is how you add applications to Azure Active Directory and provide the access to the users. All right, and the other option is to create users. As I was starting creating the users, click on create users, and let's give a name. Let's say test use one, and you can see the by default you will have this tenant vbchatsolutions.onmicrosoft.com. I did a custom domain verification. That's why you are able to see this here. And you can provide the nickname and provide the display name, test user for now, and password will be automatically given. I'll just take the password for now. And account status is enable. If I go to the properties, provide the first name and last name. Test user for now, but we'll try to create actual users in upcoming sessions. Member user type is a member, he's not a guest user. Maybe the role will be a cloud engineer, and company is vbhitsolutions.com. Department is a cloud services department, and employee you can give, let's say, E190 something. And employee type is a full-time employee or contract employee when we hired the user. And location can be any location, and who is the manager, and provide all the basic properties here. And usage location can be India or US, UK, whatever the country they're trying to access from. And assignment, so you can add a user to a group. If I add the user to May 2023, okay, and the role, I'm not going to add anything for now. We will try to create this user first. Okay, let's refresh and look for this user. Test user is here. And if I go to the assigned groups, I think this is not the user we created. Let's refresh. Yeah, so this is the user. The user is part of May 2023 group. And let me check the roles. User is having eligibility assignment as global administrator. But he's not having a direct assignment, but he can activate his role. Like we discussed in the last session, we can use privileged identity management to activate the roles. And if I go to the licenses, the user have a EMS license and the Microsoft Teams license as well. And you can see they all are inherited from the group, okay? And if I go to the Azure role assignments, even this user have access to the Azure subscription. So for the dev subscription, the user is a owner, and there's a dev 02 subscription, he's a owner, and there's a production subscription, but he don't have access. Okay, so there are two subscriptions the user automatically got access. How he got access? Because the user having a group permission, right? So this is a group that user have permissions, and this group was added, right? This group has a couple of members, and all these members are added to specific roles. If I go to the roles and administrators, not roles, assigned roles. And under the eligibility role assignment, the user have a global admin, and even the applications, I think you should have application access as well. You see the application which we have given, and the license also you should be having. So which means whatever I assign to this group, the user will have access to them, right? This is easy to handle the permissions, or it's easy to handle the access part. That's why many times we create a group and add users to the group. It's important to identify what all are the groups we have to create for, and the purpose of the group has to be clearly defined, and we need to add the right users to the group. Now let us do one thing. Let us try to access this user, log in with these user credentials, and access the application that are granted access to him. So I'm trying to use the portal.azure.com. and use his account credentials. For the first time login, you have to change the password. I believe it's gonna ask me for a multi-factor authentication. It's important to enable this feature all the time because, for the first to secure the user account from any unauthorized access, it's quite common that people can guess your user ID password. That's the reason Microsoft introduced this multi-factor authentication. Either you authenticate through a mobile phone or email notification. There is another one, Microsoft Azure Authenticator. So using that authenticator, you can also authenticate with the application code. So right now I'm skipping the setup for now because this is the test user account. So I'll skip this setup for now and move for the next steps. Okay, so now I am in Azure subscription, Azure portal. And if I look for the subscriptions, I have 3 subscriptions access. Okay, and if I go to Azure Active Directory, currently I think I am just a user. If I go to roles and administrators here, my role is just a user, but but I am eligible for, this user is eligible for global administrator permissions. And to activate that permissions, we can go to privileged identity management and activate the account global admin credentials. If I am a normal user, let me see what I can do here. Can I create a user account? I don't have a way to create a user account, but I do see an option to invite an external users. Let's say I'm gonna say my email ID. Will I get the invitation? Looks like it's working. So you can be a user. No, it's not working. This user cannot be invited because the domain of the user must say verified domain of the directory. Okay, so looks like the user, we can invite the users. Okay, if you are having a user permission, you can invite the B2B users, but you cannot create a new user in the cloud on Azure AD. That's what we are seeing here. Uh, Let me see if I can delete any user here. Let's say if I try to delete one of the user, delete option is not highlighted, but I see reset password option is highlighted. Will I be able to reset the password? Let me just check it out. The password cannot be reset. This may be due to incorrect level of administrative privileges, or if you're trying to reset your own password. So this is definitely an issue with the permission because the test user is only having the user permissions. He do not have the administrator permission, global administrator permission, or user administrator permissions. So with this role, I cannot do anything. Okay, but let me see what applications I have access to it. So let me first look for the user account, test user. So this is the user, and the user having access to applications is only one application. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me try to activate the privileged account. So if I go to Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, And this feature is available only if you have the premium license. If you don't have the premium license, you may not be able to activate or assign these roles. So I go to my roles and I see eligible assignments. So I can simply click on activate. It's validating my request. Let's give a few more seconds. So since it is a privileged account, I think I have to validate my credentials. I have to provide additional information. Otherwise, it's not going to allow me to, connect. Okay, so let me provide the details and complete this MFA setup. The SMS verification has been successfully completed. I'm going to provide my email ID. I got a email. Let me validate this. Okay, so MFA setup is completed. Now I have an option to activate my account. Validation is successfully completed. By default, it is giving you 8 hours of duration. In case if I'm working on a request, let's say creating a user account or adding an application, so hardly it will take 1 hour unless you have multiple requests you have to handle. So I don't want to go for 8 hours. I would say 30 minutes or 1 hour. 1 hour should be fine, and I'm gonna specify. So I've received a ticket, request to provision user accounts. Hence I am using privileged account. Okay, so the ticket reference number, you can specify the reference number. Let's say if you are working on a, depends on the uh, ticketing tool that you are using it, so you might have some reference numbers. You specify them and activate this account. So when you activate it, there are different stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So it will automatically complete the stage 3 and refresh the page. So activation is almost completed. All right, it's almost done. It's gonna refresh the page and it will give me the global administrator permissions. So now if I go to Azure Active Directory and check the roles and administrators, roles and administrators, I'm the global administrator now. All right, now I can add users or delete users, modify the properties of the user, modify the directory of the user. So if I want to delete this user account, I can simply click on delete and I have an option to delete it. Okay, I can create a new user account in the cloud and with the required properties. Okay, I have enough permissions. So if I go to myapps.microsoft.com, So user can see the application that are granted access to him. So these are the application the user have access to it. So you just need to, start using them. So you don't need to go to each and every application URL separately. So this is like a dashboard where user can see it. You just need to click on this option. It will take him to the login page, and the Panda doc what we have seen, which we have integrated, that you can see from here. So it can also be automatically signed in, but this is not properly configured. We have not configured the single sign-on for this user or application. So if the application configuration is completed, the user should be able to access automatically. So this how the SharePoint access is given, or even if I go to the Teams, the user will get a Teams access, Outlook access. You can arrange these tiles, based on your business require, based on your, understanding, which one you want to have see first, which one you want to see the last. So it's up to you. You can configure it. Since it is a global administrator, I think we have more privileges. That's why you're seeing the admin option here, where you can log into Office 365 and start reviewing the admin related activities as well, like billing, licenses, everything. Even if you go to Office 365, the active users can be seen here. Whatever the users which are there in the Azure AD, they can be seen here as well, right? That's what we were talking about it. So you create user accounts in the Azure AD, and they can be visible in Office 365. They can be visible in Azure subscriptions. They can be visible in Azure AD and have access to applications as well. So that's how we provide access to the users, and they can be able to log in. Now, what I will do is I will go back to my uh, Azure my Excel account, and I will remove this user from the group that he is part of it. So let's say remove the membership. So when I remove the membership, this user is just a normal user. So he don't have access to any subscriptions, any applications, or any licenses, nothing, right? If I go to this user section, look for test user now again, this is the user account. And if I go to assign rules, active assignments will be empty. Eligible assignments also nothing, no results. Let me go to applications, no applications. And let me check the licenses. If the license will automatically removed, since it just we just removed, it may take some time to reflect, but ideally the user will access will be removed. And let me check the Azure portal access, dev subscription, dev 02, and production subscription or foundation. So none of the subscriptions the user have access. Okay, so let me re-log in with this account, and let us see how is the experience is going to be for us. And what is the UPN? It's a test user 1 at pbhitsolutions.com. And here's the password. And if I go to subscriptions, I don't see any subscription because the user is not part of the group where user group was added to subscription. If I go to Azure AD and go to the applications, enterprise applications, yeah, this directory has access to this enterprise applications. But if I go to the users and look for the specific user, so this user will not have access to any applications. Licenses, even the license also not there. Okay, so now let me log into my apps Microsoft.com. So he has got access to default applications, but the Panda doc which he had access, it's not showing up here. Even the admin console, I don't think it will give him the admin permissions. Probably it is still reflecting the changes. Maybe it will take some time to reflect. Um, but user changes are reflecting here in the subscription side. So the user don't have access to subscriptions. Even if I go to privileged identity management, going to the my roles, there are no eligible assignment or active assignment. Okay, there's one active assignment. That's the reason he is able to see. Okay, if I deactivate this, because it's given for an hour, that's why the admin console is showing up here. Okay, let me just again try myapps.microsoft.com. Yeah, it's still taking the old information. Could be an issue with the browser cache, but ideally it is not supposed to. We can try after some time, or maybe in next session we can have this reviewed. All right, so this is how we add users to the Azure AD and provide them access to the cloud applications or SaaS-based applications or Azure subscriptions or Office 365, services. In this, how we add for the cloud-based users, business-to-business users, and then we can also integrate on-premises AD users to Azure AD. So in the next session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the on-premises Active Directory and create users, and we'll install the Azure AD Connect, and we'll try to synchronize those users to Azure AD, and we'll do the testing on the permissions or user access to subscriptions and Office 365 and SaaS-based applications. So by the time we would be completing creating users in the cloud, Azure AD directly, and inviting the business to business users, and synchronizing the on-prem AD users to Azure AD, and how we can provide access to them. Then later we will talk about subscription permissions and where you can apply these permissions, what is the scope of the permissions, how they are different from the Azure AD permissions. We'll do some couple of use cases with the different users to get more clarity on the roles and how we create custom roles. So that is what we are going to do on the day 4 session. All right, a day 5 session. Thank you everyone once again for your time and watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to guide you. And once again, thank you and bye for now.